of the last days. It's only the beginning of the last days. Is there a problem, JT, because you're shaking your head? All right, we're good. We're good to go. So good to be with you. We are heading to Calgary this weekend. We have got events, and I don't know if we can pop those posters up because it is final countdown. I hope that you will go to my website at Laura-Lynn.tv, just Laura-Lynn.tv, and pick the location where you would like to come to the event, and you can purchase your tickets there. And we have tickets for every budget, okay? We understand that it's hard for some people. If you are able to pay the ticket price, it is a fair ticket price. It is a good ticket price, $69 to see who? To see Dr. Artis from the States, to see Dr. Byram Bridle, to see Dr. Makis, to see Dr. Bonnie Millard, and if you're in Red Deer, you're going to see Dr. Paul Alexander as well. Artur Pavlovsky will be there encouraging us to be strong and to stand against the tyranny that we have faced. And in Calgary, we will see as well Pastor Craig Baroker. So, and of course, we've got Eli and the band. We love to travel with them because they are absolutely fantastic. So please, 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 go and get your tickets ASAP. The other one is the Great Canadian Awakening, and that is taking place in Toronto, May 5th and 6th at the Canada Christian College. You do not want to miss this. There's so many guests at this one, I can't even describe. It's a 2-day event. It's going to be all those people right there. It's going to be all those people and more probably by the time we get there. It's you can see Josh Alexander. Josh, is it? It is Josh Alexander. I got it right? Okay. Yeah, last time I was saying the guy that's off Seinfeld. All right. So always a fun day here. So we have got quite a show today. Many of you know the courageous Billboard Chris, who was assaulted by another dude in Vancouver area. And we want to go, through his story and see what exactly happened there. Get the word from him. And in a moment, I'm going to play a video that, has some mainstream media weigh in on this. And of course, we know that this issue is dividing the country and it's dividing rational people, which is shocking, I might say. But I looked open, I turned to my dad's open Bible, the Bible that he loved to mark up. And I thought, I wonder if he, highlighted anything that was important on this issue. And I went to Genesis 1. And my dad has highlighted Genesis 26 and 27. And in Genesis 26, the first part, it says, and God said, let us make man in our image. And if I would jump to verse 27, it says, so God created man in his own image. In the image of God created he him. Male and female created he them. And God blessed them. And God said to them, be fruitful and multiply. That means have babies, not stop having babies, have babies. And replenish the earth and subdue it, and have dominion over the fish of the sea and the fowl and every living thing that moves upon the earth. And God thought that it was good. It was good. He made man and woman. And there was quite a distinction between men and women. But in today's culture, that hasn't happened. So Billboard Chris is a father. He has 2 daughters, and he has been very concerned about the erasing of women in our culture. He's been very concerned about boys saying that they're girls and going into women's bathrooms. He's been concerned over the fading of the line and distinction between men and women because that's anti-science and it's anti-truth. So recently, Billboard Chris was at an event and he was wearing his billboard, which has sort of become his calling card now. And what happened was not pleasant. Take a look as he basically gets assaulted by another guy. Hey,
All right, so you saw the man who was getting sort of grabbed at the chest. His name is Billboard Chris.
Yeah, he was who I was talking about in the hot headlines. This person who, if you followed along on his social media, you would be appalled at the behavior and what he's wearing, the intolerance in his sign. He's got the selfie stick with his camera rolling, like he's just trying to make something happen in a place, in a space that's supposed to be celebrating a part of society that has existed forever.
And he
It has
calls
existed
himself
forever.
a child protection advocate.
Oh, please.
And then he's just agitating, and not just against the people who are there to celebrate the trans community, also going after the police. There was one female officer in particular. They were just going hard after her. Watch this.
It's
Honestly,
crazy.
I'd want to.
It's crazy. Yeah.
Excuse me, did you just say he came here to incite violence by forcing his opinion on people?
Yeah. Yes.
You think he came here to incite violence because they got offended by his sign?
When you
What
talk
is
to
wrong
someone
with you?
and scream at someone and
He
put
didn't
your
scream
face,
at all.
Yes,
he
did.
didn't. They put their face in his face. What is wrong with
Okay.
you?
Okay.
So are you saying the guy who hit him
How on earth did you become a police officer?
self-defense?
She is literally
What?
sitting here saying that Billboard Chris is inciting violence by standing there with his sign. Is that really your position?
Okay, sir. We're done with this conversation.
Yeah, I thought so.
I hate to use anything from
Rebel
News,
media. No.
But did that just
not
because,
news.
to me, it shows
That's not
the
news.
kind of restraint that a police officer has to have when you're being aggressed by someone else who's clearly a bit of a nutter. And so they were saying in the one part of the video you didn't see, they were saying, you've got an arrest and this guy was assaulted. And she said, well, do you have evidence of that? He said, yes, I've got video. And she said, well, let me see it. No, I can't show it to you because I'm filming you right now. And I thought, honestly, if it was me, Jody, I could not be a police officer because I would be inclined to tell them to, or what have you.
All right. Hey, Chris, thank you very much for being here. So I have a few comments. I just cannot restrain myself. So before I let you just go wild, can I just say, Linda Steele, these two women, how absolute are you? You know, are you women feminists? You know, do you stand for women? Like, are you just fine with all that's going on? And are you fine with young girls being assaulted in their bathrooms, which has happened? And the boys go in and they assault the girls, and that's all fine because they claim that they're girls. Are you fine with men taking key positions in women's sports? Are you fine with men being called Woman of the Year? Is that all okay with your feminism? And as for, that Billboard Chris is just agitating. He's standing there with a sign. You know, when we have strong opinions and our world's going to hell in a handbasket and we're erasing gender and somebody dares to sign, just stand there and have a sign. And is that agitating? And that's okay. And then I think she called you a nutter. She called you a nutter, Chris. And I think who looks like a nutter is the guy who assaulted you. I think he looks like a wild and crazy person who should have been arrested for that. And when the police get to a place where our right to protest peacefully is not respected, and the people that are punching are ignored, and the people that are assaulting others, who are really the nutters, I might say, I think that we've gotten to a bad place in our world. Oh, so this is the guy, right? This is the face of the guy who assaulted you. And I think that looks more like the nutter, not the father who's wanting to protect young people who are now being propagandized into a transgender lifestyle. And then they say, the one other lady, Chris, she says, that's the female cop in the background. Okay, yeah, standing there. Look at that.
Smiling.
Yeah,
She's
smiling. She's smiling, Chris. And they say, this has always been there. I asked my mom before she passed away, how many transgenders were in your class? And she's like, what's a transgender? She's in her 80s. There was nobody dressing like a girl. There was nobody doing any of that. This has not been always here, not in public society. It has not been pushed as normal. You had the people that had mental health issues that were on the sidelines that everybody kind of stared funny at, because usually they had high heels and they were usually involved in addiction and, and sex trafficking. Really, I saw that kind of thing, but I didn't see this. And then you go to when I was in school. No, nobody in my school was transgender. Now, we've got, 4 or 5 or 10 of them in every school. And let me just say about Linda Steele before I let you take over, Chris. I want to just say about Linda Steele that this woman, she is pathetic. Clearly, probably votes for NDP or Liberal, obviously. Such a lack of understanding, such a lack of common sense. And I remember having an interview with her regarding Soji and what they were teaching our kids. And do you know, she would not put me on live. She wanted to do an interview with me, but she got my comments. She muddled with them. And by the time that it went to air, she just kind of paraphrased what I said. She would not put me on live because what I had to say was very damning to Soji, to what they're indoctrinating every child into believing that they can be transgender and thus leading to a world of complete and utter chaos. And in a few minutes, I know that Tucker Carlson featured you the other night, but I want to play a clip from Tucker Carlson on this issue. But first, Chris, thank you for being here. I'm so sorry that ignorant women are actually coming against you when you are protecting women. And I find you to be a very courageous man in Canada. Thanks for being here. Tell us about this situation.
Thank you. So I should say, first of all, the main purpose of my campaign is about the medical abuse going on with kids.
Yes.
Transitioning children to the opposite sex. That's really what my campaign is all about. The issues affecting women, of course, are part of this. So I do talk about that sometimes as well. But we have all of these kids, mostly girls, as young as 9 or 10 years old, are being given a drug which stops their bodies from developing. These are puberty blocking drugs which have never been approved for this purpose. These kids are then given the opposite sex hormones. So girls are getting testosterone, boys are getting estrogen, and they're doing surgeries on kids as well. So I travel all around North America having conversations. My whole purpose is to have conversations and start conversations. And I've been doing this for 2.5 years. So I don't even really consider myself a protester. I'm out there just standing quietly, ready to have a conversation with anyone who wants to have them. And that was the purpose of me going to that event the other day. I had been there for about 5 seconds. I saw my friend Pierre Barnes, who I think you've had on your show. He's done more work than anyone in Canada, exposing some of the terrible books containing pornography that are in school libraries all across the country. But he was on his own. There were about 75 of these somewhat hostile people. And so I made my way across this grass field to go say hi. I couldn't even get to him. I'd been there 3 or 4 seconds and I was assaulted already. Someone marked up my sign and I got hit in the head. My nose was bleeding. So I did what you do in these situations and I called for the police. So that female police officer we just saw was the first one to arrive. So I have the good fortune of her being the investigating officer. If I need to have any questions for anyone, it's her. She got out of the car. I walked over to the car. I don't think she was even going to get out of the car. And I knew right away I had a problem because I said to her, I should be able to walk freely in Canada without getting assaulted. And she said, well, now this is all on camera. Every single second of the 40 minutes or so was recorded. It's all up on Twitter, at Billboard Chris. Dan Dix recorded a lot of this as well. But I knew right away I had a problem. She wasn't going to do anything. She didn't want to go find the person who assaulted me. Dan Dix showed her the video on his phone twice. Now you see these reporters, Linda Steele and Jody Vance, trying to make it out that Dan Dix didn't record it, that he didn't want to show them the video because he was filming her. Well, yes, he was filming her, as was I, because it's kind of important when right away you have police officers acting in the corrupt way that this one was. But I continued filming. Dan showed her the video twice. So she'd seen the first assault. This is not the assault that all of your viewers just saw. This was a separate one. Over the next 40 minutes, they refused to do anything. I had a few conversations. Dan Dix wanted to interview me. So we set up a camera to interview, and I got surrounded by people. I walked away from them. They surrounded me again. I walked away a second time. They came around again. Now, we've been going at this for half an hour here with people being extremely aggressive. They'd already sucker punched Pierre Barnes from behind. I'd been assaulted. Another older man, probably in his 60s, had been shoved to the ground. So there were numerous assaults that day by numerous people.
Wow.
I was then giving this interview to Dan Dix. Actually, as I'm giving the interview, I'm technically being assaulted. There's screaming profanities in each of my ear from inches away. Spittle flying from their mouths, no doubt. One of the yells particularly hurt my eardrum. So I put up a hand just to create a little space for myself. I didn't even push. But as soon as you step on someone's pinky toe, they take this as a provocation to commit violence. And so as you can see in the video, I got grabbed in the throat. He actually ended up pulling on one of my ropes. The other guy pushed from behind, and I was a little off balance, so I took a tumble. I also got punched in the face as well. And during the entire assault, it's not just a single screen grab. During the entire assault, for all these seconds passing by as I'm getting punched and falling, that police officer, Constable Frederick Buckman, is smiling ear to ear. She loves it. She went home.
Her name is Frederick?
Frederica Buckman.
Sorry. Thank you.
Yeah, Buchmann. Now, did they arrest this guy after this? No. Did they even take down his information? No. Did they take down the information of any of the other people who committed assaults that day? Of course not. The last thing they want to do is put a transgender person in handcuffs because this goes against the narrative that the government and the media and now apparently the police force are all trying to push, which is that these are the most oppressed group of people in history. If that were true, we would see the violence on a 24/7 loop on CNN, but you never see any. All you ever see is violence coming from these trans activists and people who identify as trans towards peaceful people like myself. So it's a total outrage. Policing in this country is a complete joke. That police officer, the woman, Frederick Buckman, she went home and she logged into her Twitter account and she liked a tweet of somebody laughing hysterically about the assault. She had also previously liked a tweet from Jody Vance, the woman we see in the media, where Jody is celebrating the International Transgender Day of Visibility. So what we have here is a trans activist in a police uniform. I was never going to get justice. She was never going to do anything about it. And this made world news, not only because of the assault, but because of the lack of police response and the fact that she's smiling throughout. They want this to happen.
Well, I think it is going to continue happening because they're allowing it, and I think one day, though, there will be there will be justice that will come because it will have to, because this is so outrageous that there will be someone who's going to pay a price and think that they can get away with it, and it's actually going to hurt them because this is not acceptable actually in Canada, and I'm pretty shocked about this. Is there something more you can do? Can you file something against the police for this? Can you talk to her superiors? What can be done?
Yeah, so the police tell me they have now started an investigation.
Okay.
I'll believe it when I see someone arrested. All the police were standing there watching. They made an appeal online for witness reports. There's 40 of them witnessing it themselves, staring right at it, and they did nothing. Every single second is on video. So they've got my video, they've got Dan Dick's video. I'm sure they have other video angles as well. But everything they need is right there. This person should have been arrested on the spot. And as soon as they started the investigation, they should have arrested him. Some of my Twitter followers found out this guy's name. I forget his last name. His first name's Brooklyn. A friend of mine in Boston, actually, who's an independent reporter, wrote a huge article all about him. So the police know who he is. This made worldwide news. That one video we just watched was seen over 10 million times just on my Twitter feed. Never mind all the people who downloaded it and it aired on TV and whatever. So the Vancouver Police Force has been the embarrassment of Canada in front of the whole world. And I know they've been flooded with hundreds, if not thousands of complaints. But they still do nothing. So I will, of course, do everything I can within my power. I plan on suing the VPD. I need to find a lawyer who wants to do it. I'm trying. I'll do everything within their internal. I'll file a complaint through their police commissioner or whatever I have to do through their internal resources. And if they don't arrest this person, I will do what's called a private prosecution and press charges myself. We can do this right in front of a judge. Crown Counsel may or may not attend. And if I need to sue civilly, I'll do that as well, although there's probably not much point to that. It's not like anything's going to come of it. But anyway, I'm just going to keep going. This isn't my first assault. This is about my 25th assault. I've had my arm broken by Antifa. I've been mobbed by 200 university students in front of police, punched in the head twice, had my car keyed, spat on, painted on, had my signs destroyed. That all happened in Ottawa in front of 12 police officers with MPs and Ottawa city councillors present, cheering it all on as police did nothing. Police refused to investigate the people who broke my arm in Montreal. So this is nothing new. This is just the state of Canada. It's a total disgrace.
Yes. Tell me more, Chris, about why you're putting yourself in harm's way and what the message is that you feel is so important to get out. I agree with your message 100%, and so do millions of Canadians. But you're taking it on yourself, and you are doing this peacefully, and I have never seen any violence, and we've been following you actually for a long time because we find you to be very courageous. But tell me, what is it that you want people to know through what you're doing?
Tens of thousands of kids are coming to physical, irreversible harm.
Yeah.
Children are being taught that they might have been born in the wrong body just because they don't conform to regressive sexist stereotypes, essentially, is what this comes down to. We have, in the United States, the official numbers, the New York Times reported last year, are that 300,000 children have been officially diagnosed with gender dysphoria. That does not include all the kids who haven't been officially diagnosed. These are usually diagnoses for insurance purposes. And it's the same thing in Canada, percentage-wise, except we're even worse. I talked to a couple whose daughters were going to the Langley Fine Arts School about 6 months ago. 45 girls in middle school were identifying as trans or non-binary. And it's the school's policy to hide this from the parents because they consider parents to be automatically a threat to their own child. So they're engaging in these psychosocial interventions where they're changing a child's name and pronouns, constantly affirming that a child was born wrong, which itself is an abusive thing. And all of these kids who end up at these gender clinics at children's hospitals are struggling mightily. And instead of being treated for whatever underlying mental health comorbidity they have, they're having their physical development stopped. They're receiving the wrong hormones, which cause irreversible harm. A girl on testosterone after 4 or 5 years has to get a hysterectomy. They call these gender-affirming hysterectomies. They're sending teenaged girls into menopause, which has 100 side effects of its own. Early onset dementia, early onset osteoporosis. These drugs and hormones do not belong in these children's bodies. The drug that's given to them to stop puberty is actually only been approved for prostate cancer and endometriosis or uterine fibroids as well in women. Same drug has been given to pedophiles to chemically castrate them. But they don't do that anymore because it's considered inhumane. Yet they give this drug, it's normally a drug called Lupron, they give this to kids for the duration of their puberty. And then they put them on the opposite sex hormones to make them look like the other sex. When in reality, these kids, half of them are on the autism spectrum. We know this from gender clinic statistics themselves. The biggest gender clinic in the world, called the Tavistock in England, out of a sample of more than 1,000 kids, 35% had moderate to severe autism. If you include the mild cases, it goes above 50%. These are girls and boys who've been sexually abused. There's trauma. There's borderline personality disorders. Who knows what's going on? But there's always other things going on in these children's lives. And now they're being treated as though gender is the source of all their problems. And they're given these harmful drugs and hormones, which are sterilizing kids. We're turning them into lifelong medical patients. And we're expected to consider that this is loving and kind and helping them to be who they really are. It's insane, and it's child abuse, and we have to put a stop to it.
Yes, we do. And you have to wonder if some of these drugs is what's making people violent and causing them to lose, their common sense. Tucker Carlson featured your story the other day, and I was also taken with some comments that he had to make, that he made regarding the young woman who went in and murdered 3 children and 2 teachers and a custodian at a school recently. And he was very taken as well with how society is dealing with this whole issue, that it seems to be allowing this violence. And he termed it actually as a new religion. And I thought that was very significant because these folks believe so strongly that they are in the right and we don't have a right to disagree, that even when someone murders people, they present it in an unusual light, even in the religious institutions, which I do not ascribe to these types of religious people. But this was interesting. So I'd like to play this clip from Tucker Carlson and get your feedback on it.
Every country has a religion because every person has a religion, even if it's atheism. Everybody worships something. We're born that way. We can't get away from it. So what is America's religion now? Well, as it happens, we have video. This is from St. Mark's Lutheran Church in Fargo, North Dakota. It was taken on April 2nd. That was the first Sunday after the mass killing in Nashville, in which 3 adults and 3 children were murdered at a Christian school for being Christians. In the old America, Christian pastors would have preached about this. They would have acknowledged the evil on display, and they would have prayed for those who'd been killed. A form of that is still happening today, but the roles have been inverted. In America's new religion, the victims are not the children who died in Nashville. The victim is the woman who killed them. Because Audrey Hale called herself transgender, she was, by definition, a holy martyr. Watch this pastor in a formerly Christian church compare Audrey Hale to Jesus.
Leaders were looking for any excuse, valid or not, to crucify Jesus. And they found that reason. It's baffling to me that someone's existence can be so threatening that people decide they need to be controlled, that they need to have laws made against them, or even worse, that the people that they find to be so threatening should die.
So Audrey Hale's very existence as a transgender person was so threatening to authorities that they killed her, just as the Pharisees killed Jesus. Her death had nothing to do with the fact she just murdered 6 people. That was the pastor's sermon at St. Mark's in Fargo.
Isn't this an interesting thing that's happening, Chris?
So that's a wolf. That's not a pastor. That's a wolf shepherding the flock,
Yep.
devouring them all with this ideology. On the front page of my website, I call this a pseudo-religion. It is. This is the new religion. With the decline we've seen in traditional religions, well, nature abhors a vacuum, and wherever there's a void, something takes its place. And that void has been filled with postmodernism or queer theory. Today, this is an ideology that's come out of academia, where essentially everything that's perverse and abnormal needs to be normalized. Included in that is gender ideology, transitioning kids, pedophilia, everything. There's no morals at all. Everything goes. That's the premise of queer theory. And a lot of these churches are being taken over by these people as well, because of course they are. We're better to spread your evil than as the fake leader of a Christian church. And when they present this as being loving and inclusive and just helping people to exist, well, this is the language of the left. They always use these euphemistic terms. It's not a double mastectomy on children. It's top surgery. It's not a penile inversion surgery on a child. It's bottom surgery. It's gender affirming care, which to the unsuspecting person sounds nice and lovely, when in reality, it's a childhood sex change. It's stopping the development of kids. And so we have these serpents taking over these churches and indoctrinating their constituents. And what can I say? It's evil. This whole movement is pure evil. And we need Canadians to wake up,
And
because
speak out.
this is only going to get worse before it gets better.
You know, I have an interesting perspective, Chris, because when I began speaking out against SOGI, sexual orientation and gender identification, which is nothing but sexualizing children and, promoting pedophilia to kids, when I began speaking out about it, I was pretty much the only one, myself, Carrie Simpson, and a couple friends who highlighted what they knew of was going into the schools. And honestly, I thought it was one crazy school in Langley. We didn't know of any transgender movement. We didn't know of all these transgender kids. There was no understanding and knowledge of all of that being out there. To the point where when we began to show parents what was being taught in the schools, they didn't believe us. And in fact, we had Christians and pastors who thought we were too radical for bringing this forward and that we were making too much of an issue of it because they didn't really believe it was happening. I think several years later, like that was in, I think, 2016, 17, And no one had heard of this. And now it's all across the country. Now everybody knows. And now schools are full of, incidentally, after they've been propagandized and indoctrinated, suddenly we have transgenders everywhere.
Right. People didn't want to believe the truth. Things have changed a lot since I've started this campaign 2.5 years ago. I don't need anyone to listen to anything I'm saying anymore because I have video from all of the so-called trans health experts themselves in the world, like the president of the World Professional Association for Transgender Health, a man who says he's a woman. His new name is Marcy Bowers. But he's the president of the organization who write the standards of care. And he admits in a Zoom call that none of the boys who started on puberty blockers at what's called Tanner Stage 2, the beginning of puberty, none of them as adults have been able to have an orgasm. So they're destroying the future sexual function of these kids. I've got the top doctors in the world who work at Boston Children's Hospital, the #1 ranked children's hospital in the country, saying that it's things like a little girl trying to pee standing up, a little boy who doesn't want to get a haircut, or playing with opposite gender toys. Toys are what determine if your child is transgender and can be treated. And a lot of these videos have woken up the entire conservative movement. Canadians are waking up too now. And the left was just really successful because they had all the money behind them and they have all the institutions behind them. They've spent billions of dollars pumping this false ideology into all aspects of society. The government's pushing it, the medical organizations are pushing it, the schools are pushing it, our police are protecting the criminals. And when you have really only left-wing media throughout Canada, except for a few alternative sources, and people like you doing the brave work that you do, well, most Canadians aren't getting the truth about this. So that's why I took my campaign out onto the streets, because we have to get out of our echo chambers and talk to people.
I've
from all
seen you
walks of life.
everywhere. I've seen you peacefully standing in ways that nobody would, dare to do. People don't, they don't even want to speak, well, I wouldn't want to hurt anyone's feelings, or I don't want anyone mad at me because I know that transgender is really not a thing, and it really isn't a thing. This has been a very evil insertion into our culture that has been backed by Soros money. Soros actually has backed the transgender movement. And I thought it was cool. What do you think, Chris, about how Bud Light has faced such a backlash for promoting this transgender woman mocking, disgusting person, and has now received a $5 billion loss because of what they've done?
Yeah, their market cap, their stock price has dropped. It's cost them a market valuation of $5 billion. I think their sales have completely plummeted. I saw a number of 80% or something. I can't verify that, but no matter what, this has been a wake-up call to all the other companies out there. Go woke, go broke. This is costing them big time. It's not worth whatever they paid Dylan Mulvaney, this man making a mockery of women. But yeah, you mentioned George Soros. It's every major international institution. It's the UN, it's the WEF, it's the World Health Organization, it's Bill Gates, it's these billionaires who now identify as transgender themselves, like the founder of XM Sirius Radio, Martine Rothblatt, or Jennifer Pritzker, a billionaire heir to the Hyatt fortune, cousin of the governor of Illinois, J.B. Pritzker. And then it's all these organizations like Planned Parenthood or the Human Rights Campaign, and every single institution in Canada are pumping money into this. There's a drag queen camp for children going on at Granville Island in Vancouver this summer from ages 7 up, teaching kids to do drag. It's funded by the City of Vancouver, the Province of BC, the Government of Canada, the Canadian Arts Council. It goes on and on and on and on. Yet they still charge like $800 for kids to attend. But they have the support of every single institution. But what do we have, Laura? We have the advantage. There you go. We have the advantage because we have the truth. And the truth spreads for free, and it is spreading for free. And I can tell you with absolute certainty, because I've had more conversations on the street and at university campuses than anyone else in the world. More than 90% of the population supports us in this. Even these leftist governments, they aren't representing their voters. They're just pushing this ideology because they're all run by activists. If they don't have the activist support and these extremist support, they never get elected in the first place. So we just need to vote them out of power. But first, we need to create massive awareness. So that's what I'm working on. I know you're working on it. And we're going to win this battle. It's simply a question of how many kids are harmed before we do.
We are going to win this battle. And I'll let you go, Chris. Thank you for your time. The interesting thing about this group, this bully group, the anti-bullying bullies, they reject their own when somebody detransitions. The worst treatment for a person who, you know, decided they'd be the opposite sex and then it didn't work out for them and they realized that they're still not happy and that was never the issue and they've been lied to and now they're a girl and they've had their breasts cut off. And when they change their mind and come to the reality, the LGBTQ queer group is nowhere to be found. They don't care about them anymore, and the government doesn't care about them anymore. And now they're in a very, very high suicidality rate, and nobody cares, especially the people promoting this. And so
100%.
It's a facade, it's a lie, and it's destroying lives. And they are also assaulting kids that have already mental health issues, like autism. They latch onto them, and these ideas kind of circulate in these kids' minds, and it's ripping families apart, and it's terrorizing parents with what's going on. And if you ask me, you can't afford to put your kids in public school anymore. You need to homeschool them. Take care of it yourself. It's going to be a bit harder, but get a community because lots of people are now doing it. Remove your children en masse from the schools and the propaganda so that you do not become a victim of this nonsense and this evil that has assaulted our world. Chris, I'll give you one final comment and thank you for your time today.
Sure. There's no such thing as a transgender child. They're called girls and boys, and they're beautiful just as they are. No drugs or scalpels needed. Please follow me on Twitter at Billboard Chris, and if you wish to support me, billboardchris.com. Thank you so much, Laura.
Thank you. I do encourage everybody to support you, and I pray that even now, I have a lot of lawyers and doctors and people of significance that watch the show all the time. If there is somebody that's willing to take on this very easy to win case, easy. It's easy.
Yeah.
We've got the video. We see what happened. If somebody's willing to support Chris, please, you can send us a letter if you didn't get his information. But you're on Twitter. You've got a website. And I do pray that you find somebody that comes to your defense because you deserve it. Thank you for what you're doing.
All right. Thank you so much.
Take care. Thank you, Chris. Okay. There was, one more thing that we were going to mention on this, and that's that basically if there's the European Union's Commission's infringement proceedings against Hungary's anti-LGBT law. So Hungary is standing against this. Different countries in the world are standing against it. Uganda, different parts of Africa standing against certain things. And, sometimes they go a little bit far. But, hey, let's face it, even in the Middle East, Saudi Arabia, Iran, Iraq, all of those places that are Muslim-oriented places, they do not stand for that. Generally people of faith that believe in a God and a creator understand and believe that God had a plan and a purpose and he did not intend for any of this. So when people, stand up for things like this, well, they switch it all around and you've got the propagandists. What I kind of wonder is something else going on that we're supposed to be looking at because they've got this in front of our face all the time. They're putting so much money into confusing the world? Is it because really they've got something else going on somewhere else that they don't want us to see? So they're confusing everybody. It's bizarro world. And Linda Steele, oh my gosh, I only listen to her if I want to laugh. That is it. So I would really like to welcome one of our favorite people in Canada, not only because his name is a household name because of hockey, but because he is brilliant and he's courageous and he says what he thinks. Theo Fleury is here. Theo, welcome to the show. Thank you very much for waiting in the background as we got through that interview. I know you just interviewed Billboard Chris. We're not seeing your audio yet. Audio. Oh, hi, Chris. Oh, sorry. Hi. Can you hear us? Can you hear us, Theo?
I can hear you now.
There you go. Thank you. Thanks for waiting in the background.
Yeah.
We gave you a great introduction, so I'm sorry you missed it.
All good.
All right.
All good.
All right. It's good. You were just you were with Billboard Chris yesterday. Oh no. And now we lost his feed? Okay. You kind of froze? Oh dear. Well, let's just do he's back. All right. Sorry about your internet there.
It's crazy.
Yeah, that's okay. Sometimes when we have really significant things happening that are people with very important messages, we have more glitches. I don't know why. The devil
hear
don't
ya.
like it. Right.
Yeah.
How are you, Theo? And how is your journey going? I know you've got a lot happening. Tell us about, are you talking about what's going on in media and some of the great work you've been doing? Give us a little catch up before we get started.
Yeah. So last August, we started Canadians for Truth Media. And, it took us a while to get organized, but we are now fully up running. All of our shows are on CanadiansForTruth.ca. I have my own show called The Patriot Warrior on that platform. Jamie Soleil also has her show, Unstoppable Truth. And Joe Burgo also has a show called The Way of Truth. And then we're continuing to do live events. This Saturday night, we have the awesome Tamara Litch in Calgary at our theater, connected to our office. So that's been going well. But I've also been out on the road speaking and helping people with trauma, mental health, and addiction. So I've been incredibly busy. The snow is finally melting in Calgary, and I'm looking forward to getting out on the golf course and enjoying the summer.
So Trudeau, I'm reading here that he thinks you're an extremist who needs to be dealt with.
Sure, come and deal with me. I'm waiting. I'm waiting. Come whenever you want.
They should
Come
know better
whenever you
than to
want.
go after a hockey player, right? But you've got that competition in your bones. And why has the world gone so crazy, Theo? We have, not just in Alberta where you live, and you are heavily into the fight to rescue Alberta from a lot of bad things that have happened. And you've got a lot to say about that. But Theo, a lot has changed. When you look at when you were growing up and all of that, this is a different world than we thought we were living in.
Yeah. Well, so at the core of every single issue in society, it starts with unresolved trauma. Okay? And what we're seeing right now is everybody living out their unresolved trauma issues. And then we have a systemic government abuse that's happening. So people who've had past traumas in their life, this has re-traumatized society. Okay? And now people have a place where they can place their righteous anger, right? So we're looking at the trans movement. We're looking at,
Even
all
climate
all
change
these
people.
protests, everything. But at the end of the day, in my opinion, because this is a spiritual and psychological war, nobody's talking about the psychological piece here. Is when you keep people living in fear who have already been traumatized in their life, they can't critically think. And so all they're doing is surviving day to day. And whatever the government puts out there keeps people in fear. But when you step out of the fear and realize what exactly is going on, you can't be fooled anymore, right?
Yes.
And that's what I see playing out on the planet is we're living at an extremely low vibration because our leaders are low vibration people. They're, they've sworn allegiance to Lucifer, and they're carrying out this, deviant plan of depopulizing the world, and then creating this one world government, which they think that we're all just going to fall in line and not resist. Or how dare we resist? How dare we resist? But at the end of the day, um, I discovered spirituality and God, about 17 years ago, and I have lots of faith, and I live a very spiritual life, and I know that if this doesn't work out, I'm going to a way better place. But while I'm here, I'm going to do everything within my power to stop these people from traumatizing the world, and getting it back to the world of abundance, and the way that we should have been living, from day one.
Wow, I really appreciate that, because I think that what you do, Theo, gives a lot of people courage. I noticed that you have got a lot of followers and a lot of people that are hanging on to what you're saying because they haven't been able to make sense of it, and you're helping people to make sense of
Yeah.
what's happened. And I do believe it's trauma, and we've been traumatized for the last 3 years with everything that's happened. Not to mention the crazy world. If you dare try to define a woman these days, that apparently can get you fired from any job you have.
Yeah. Well, this breeds insanity, right?
Right.
And we are living in a complete world of insanity where absolutely nothing makes sense. But this is by design, right? This is by design. Uh, the World Economic Forum was formed in 1971. And why was it formed? Well, it was formed to create this plan that we are living in today, right? And they're carrying out this plan to a T. They know how to traumatize people. They know how to keep people in fear. They own the media. They own every single politician on the planet. And so, this is par for the course. And when you figure that out, you're no longer affected by anything that they do, right? I spend most of my day just laughing at at the insanity of the narrative. They've completely lost the narrative, and because they've lost the narrative, now they're doubling, quadrupling, and tripling down on this, dystopian nightmare which we're living in today. It's not hard to figure out when you're awake. When you see it, you can't unsee it, right? And because I am a trauma survivor who has spent the last 15 years trying to heal all of that trauma, I don't fall into the trap. And that's why I'm constantly being attacked 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, is because they don't like a person like me who believes in God, who believes in the importance of compassion and empathy and forgiveness, and all of these things that we learn when we're on this healing journey.
Yes. And I think it is scary for them when we will not be silent as they want us to, when we will not comply with the ridiculous as they want us to. And in a way, you've been prepared, haven't you, Theo? Like,
Yeah.
you have been through the fire and had to come through some adversity that made you so strong that you're not going anywhere. You're going to keep speaking the truth and setting others free.
Yeah, well, I've shaken hands with the devil many times in my lifetime, and I'm still here. So what does that say? The devil's afraid of me, because he had
I
his
like
no,
it.
he had his opportunity to take me out many times,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
And I'm still here.
You're still
And why am
here.
I here? Why am I here? because God had a plan for me. And God gave me all that adversity early on in my life. And what did that adversity do? It built resilience. And when you have resilience, there isn't anything that you can't get through in life. And so what I tell people who have gone through trauma is don't look at it as a burden. Look at it as a gift. Because the gift of adversity is resilience, and then that resilience carries you for the rest of your life. And what are we seeing now? We're seeing our kids who have zero resilience because it's our fault, because we didn't want our kids to have the tough upbringings that we had. So we gave them everything. We allowed them to, you know what I mean? And so,
Get
you
entitled.
know, yeah. And now, you know, the bad guys are targeting our kids because they know that they don't have any resilience. So they're just going to fall in line and go along with every stupid idea that they're putting out there.
I think that is so true, that young people today are so lost. And while we gave them everything, we didn't notice that our education systems and our government had been seized by these ideologies and these left-wing, people who call Billboard Chris a nutter when he's assaulted standing there, just standing up for science. And
Yeah.
and he's the nutter. Like, this is the crazy world we're in.
Yeah.
And now our
But
children.
it's that reverse psychology, right?
Yes.
You know, it's part of the psychological, you know, war that we're in, right? They accuse us of exactly what they themselves are guilty of. That's their thing. And then when we try to hold them to accountability, what do? They go straight to victimhood. And that is the formula and communism 101. Right? They know how to play this game. And, you know, there's very few of us that know how to play this game. Right? And that's why we are in this hellhole that we're in, is because we're playing their game. And so it's important, you know, to have a spiritual base, right? Because when I started on my road of recovery and self-reflection and all those things, I couldn't have done it if I didn't have a spiritual base. And so they've removed God from every aspect of our society because they knew without that spiritual base, we would fall in line and do whatever they want us to do. That's why they're arresting pastors who are going to these drag queen events. That's why Pastor Arthur has been to hell and back. It's because they know if you don't have a spiritual base, you won't wake up.
And it seems like, as Tucker said in that clip that we played earlier, and I'm not sure if you were able to see it at all, but basically the new religion is that you get to espouse some completely illogical, unscientific ideology, and by golly, the world better step on board, or you're going to have to pay. And
Yeah.
this is what these people are seizing and being emboldened by our even the police and the justice system. Like, they are
Yeah.
going to reap a war, because this, the pendulum swings.
Well, that's what
and
they
then
want.
It goes too
That's
far.
what they want.
They want
That's what
that.
they want. They want that. They want us to rise up and become violent like them.
Right.
Then they have an excuse to bring in martial law, the Emergencies Act, all of these things, right?
Wow.
But the best thing you can do is just sit back and let them implode on their own, because they're going to, right? Communism been tried 24 times in the history of our planet, and it's failed every time. And the only thing it leaves is mass death. That's the only thing that comes out of this ideology is mass death. And what are we seeing? Mass death. Mass death. Has there been 100 million people have died in the last 3 years on the planet?
Yep.
Yeah. So this is what the ideology brings to the table. It doesn't make your life better. It doesn't improve the quality of your life. It doesn't fill your belly full of food. It doesn't fill your cars. It is just mass destruction of every fiber and cell in your body. They want it all. They want it all. They want it all. Right?
So when you look at
But here's the thing. In that type of ideology, only one person can sit at the top of the pyramid. And unfortunately, it takes 10 to 20 years for them to eat themselves, which we're seeing. We've seen a little bit of that. But eventually, they eat themselves, and that's why it fails, because they want ultimate power, right? Trudeau wants ultimate power. Chrystia Freeland wants ultimate power. Klaus Schwab wants ultimate power. Bill Gates wants ultimate power, right? And all it is, if you dig into any of the history behind any one of these people who are involved in the World Economic Forum, these people have been severely traumatized as children, and they've grown up in Nazi environments, communist environments, hung around with, communists their whole entire life. And so there's always a reason for the behavior. And that behavior is a learned behavior from childhood. So what you see as a child, you're going to repeat as an adult. And that's what Trudeau and Klaus Schwab and Chrystia Freeland and Bill Gates and all these people are doing, is they're repeating what they saw as children. And they're hurt people. And these people have been severely hurt their whole entire childhood, and they grew up to be adults, and now they're getting their revenge. And it's as simple as that. It's psychological. Yep. This is psychological. And nobody talks about the psychological warfare that's happening. And once you're aware of once you're aware of what they're trying to do to your mind, then you need to do the things that take care of your mind. Meditate, breathing exercises, get outside, take your shoes off, connect to the earth, go hug a tree, all of these things, so they can't mess with your mind, because that's what they want. And if they can gain control of your mind, then they win.
I love that. I appreciate, because you're kind of answering my question, because I said, so with your expertise and all that you know, everything that you've been through, what you've been training for and healing from, the question I would ask is, well, what do we have to, what do we do? And really, it's about us getting very healthy inside. Do not let them push you into doing and becoming an unhealthy, hateful individual, because it's like gaslighting. That's what they're doing. And we really cannot react in an ungodly manner. And that's a very difficult place for us, but we're going to learn through this.
Yeah. Well, and when you are upset and you are angry, get on the phone and talk to people that you trust, so that you can vent, so that you don't take it out on society, right? I've done every kind of therapy known to mankind, okay, on my journey. And the most effective, cheapest kind of therapy there is on the planet is a thing called group therapy. And when the truckers went to Ottawa, that was the greatest example of group therapy that I'd ever witnessed in my whole entire life. And it remained peaceful the whole entire time, no matter what these idiots are trying to, spin it. And every person that I talked to in Ottawa said God was there. God was present. God was guiding that whole entire thing, right?
You're right.
So if you're struggling mentally, that means that you need to find your tribe and get with your tribe and have your tribe teach you how to be compassionate, loving, caring, forgiving human being, because that's the only way out of trauma. That's the only way out of trauma, is to get with your people and hang around with them and feed off of their high vibration. Because when we raise the vibration, this thing's over. It's over. It's over, right? And that's all I've been doing for the last 17 years is raising my vibration. That's it, right? And I now carry an energy around me that people are attracted to, right? That's how this is done, right?
And
It's
if we
not
find
rocket.
community,
Yes.
yeah, find
Why do you
community.
think they're breaking up community? Why do
Right,
you
they're
think
trying to
they
do that.
locked us down? Why do you think they locked us down and closed the churches and all this stuff? Because that the arenas, right? Every arena in Canada is a church.
Yeah.
It's where you go to get your relationship, right? They closed all of that down. And where's the worst place to be when you suffer from mental health challenges? Right here, inside of your own head. And what did we see at the beginning of COVID? We saw a spike in mental illness. We saw a spike in opioid use. We saw a spike in suicidal ideation. And then ultimately people taking their own lives is because we were locked inside of our own heads. And so this has all been by design.
Wow. And we must not comply and not give them what they
No.
want. And really, you talked earlier about forgiveness and love and compassion and empathy. These are things that are actually not seen in the video that we showed earlier. Even though, one might want to say, oh, you don't have compassion and empathy for, the other side. Actually, we really have to be able to speak the truth in love, exactly the way the Word of God says to do it, to speak the truth in love, to stand our ground. Having done all, we stand. And we're really good at that. And we're not going to get violent and we're not going to get ugly, but we're still going to stay in our truth. And that just can't be changed. You can't yell us out of it, because we understand abuse and we will not be controlled by abuse.
Yeah. Well, there's many examples in the Bible of persecution, right? But what they were doing is they were building, that's the one thing the bad guys don't know, is right now you had a very compliant society. And now for the last 3 years, all you've thrown at them is adversity, 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 adversity. And when you throw adversity at people, what happens? You build resilience in them. And now we're seeing a movement towards that resilient society that's waking up.
Wow.
So it's
And
actually
that's
doing the
good news.
reverse
Right.
of what they actually wanted to accomplish in the first place.
You're so right.
Right? So
Yeah.
you
You are
know,
so right. I love it, Theo.
yeah.
It's like
Because
we've
when
been
you-
in training, right? We've been weightlifting for endurance.
Yeah. Yeah. It's I believe it's the greatest gift that I received in my life was resilience. Right? It's what made me one of the greatest hockey players to ever play this game. Was I was resilient. Right? I could handle high pressure situations, right? Because of my abuse that I suffered, as a child and as an adolescent. It made me the person that I am today. And that's a
Right.
person who's resilient, who's full of love, who really truly cares deeply about people. My goal in this life is to end pain and suffering on the planet. because that's all I see when I'm doing the work that I do is pain and suffering. 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. People are in deep emotional pain, right? And that deep emotional pain is caused by trauma. And then what do you do? How do you cope with this emotional pain and scars that are left behind? Well, you tend to gravitate towards the dark side of life and get involved in, addictive behavior. Drugs, alcohol, food, sex, gambling, work, these stupid things we carry around with us, right? It's all been designed that way, right? But like I said, God will bring us to our knees. And 17 years ago, God brought me to my knees and I surrendered and I turned my will and my life over to the care of God as I understand Him. And since I made that choice and my decision, I have the greatest life you can possibly imagine.
I love
You
that.
know?
And I feel like you've been prepared in a very unusual way, not just through the experience you would have got of being a top-notch professional athlete, which for sure teaches endurance and strength, and then the adversity that faced you as a young person and what you had to overcome, but now as a seasoned person that cannot be taken out by every wind of doctrine that's floating around and every ideology that's floating around. You can't be fooled by elites in the world who think that they can rule over us. And in a very strange way, you've become this perfect person to speak to Canada because they already know your name and they already trust you and they love you. And now you're able to give the truth every single day about what is going on. And are you finding that you're able to awaken people? Do people write to you and they say, man, because of what you said, I got it?
Well, for 27 years, I kept a secret inside of me. And that secret just about killed me. Okay. And we have a saying in recovery, you're only as sick as your secrets. And when I told my story 27 years ago to the whole entire world, 1 out of every 4 people had the same secret I had. And so I connected to those people on a spiritual level. Right. And I'll never forget it. 4 days before I went to Toronto to launch my book, I was scared. I was so scared and so full of fear because I had no idea how everybody was going to react to what was in the book because I told that secret. And I'll never forget it. The first book signing, and I didn't have any expectations. I had very low expectations for the book. I didn't think anybody was going to read it, let alone show up at book signings for me to sign this book. So the first book signing was in Toronto at the biggest Indigo chapter store in all of Canada, downtown Toronto on Yonge Street. And I walked through the front doors of the bookstore and there was 400 people standing in line with my book. And I'm like, what the hell are all these people doing here? I didn't expect this. So I sit down at the book table and I start signing books. Out of the corner of my eye, I spot this guy in line. And he's got my book clutched against his chest and his face is buried in the floor. And his hair is greasy, his t-shirt is dirty, his sweatpants are ripped. And I'm like, I wonder what's up with this guy. So I follow him all the way in the line. He gets to the front of the line, puts the book on the table, looks me in the eye and says, me too. Me too. And I said to myself, wow. So by me finding the courage and strength to find my own voice, I can help other people do the exact same thing. And that's all I've been doing for the last 17 years or 15 years since the book came out. is teaching people about courage and about strength and about truth, about standing in your truth, because that is the greatest act of self-love you can give to yourself, is standing in your truth. So now, being in this craziness of the world, I'm standing in my truth. That's it. Whether you agree or not with me, I don't care. I am standing in my truth because I know what it's like not to stand in my truth, which I did for the first 41 years of my life. I wasn't standing in my truth. And now I'm standing in my truth. Right?
And what gave you the courage to do that, Theo? Like when you could have just kept being silent. Like what?
I was
what
going to
did that?
die. I was going to die. I was going to die. And not a quick death, a long, painful, lonely, angry, bitter, resentful death. And I knew that I was way better than that. And I knew what I was showing the world wasn't who I am. This is who I am. The guy you see here today, stand on the screen next to you, is the guy that I always wanted to be.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of pain and suffering to get there. But you know what? It was all worth it. It was all worth it.
Right.
And this is worth it. This is worth it, because when this is over, heaven on earth, man, heaven on earth. We'll be living in heaven on earth, and we'll be able to live as long as we want, because there'll be no more disease. There'll be no more bullshit like this. Right? And that's what gets me out of bed every day and keeps me going, is knowing that heaven is actually on earth and we are living in heaven right now. It may
That's
not look
amazing.
like it, may not feel like it, like I just traveled to Clemtu. You know where Clemtu is?
I don't.
It's a little island off the coast of British Columbia by Bella Bella. And I went and did a speaking engagement at a workshop there. And I was just like, oh my God, like flying in and then the boat ride and everything. I was just like, yeah, heaven is here. We're already here, So,
And that's part of having purpose. I think that a lot of today's generation doesn't have a sense of purpose, and through the pain that you went through and the difficulty, you found purpose. Like when you see someone's eyes light up, when you see the pain that someone's beginning to release because they say me too, or they go, you have unlocked something for me. God is taking all of that very bad trauma that you went through, and he is turning it into the balm of Gilead, as the Bible calls it, but literally a healing oil. And you're able to spread that now everywhere you go. That's so beautiful and so powerful.
Yeah. And like I said, all I had to do was surrender. Because when I was driving the bus in all my pain and suffering, the bus always crashed because I was running the show. My ego, all that was running my life. And when I decided to get in the passenger seat and just let it happen, this is what's happened. God has given me the gift to not only heal myself, but to heal other people as well, right? That's the gift.
Yes.
That's the gift in the pain and the suffering and the abuse and the trauma, is there is a gift at the end of it if you're willing to go on this journey and to put your faith and trust in God. People don't understand that God is a very powerful source.
Yes.
That you can tap into 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. All you got to do is ask. Right? Everybody feels that they're alone. No, you're never alone. if you have that spiritual base, if you have that spiritual connection, you're never alone. And God only gives us as much as we can handle. Right?
It's
So
absolutely
if he didn't
true.
think
And he uses it.
if he didn't think I could handle all the stuff in my childhood, he would have never gave it to me. But he had a purpose and a plan for me from day one. And it took me surrendering to reveal what the plan was for my life.
Let me ask you a tough question, Theo. If you could go back, and suddenly you could go back to time and you could prevent all of the pain that happened to you, would you do that?
No, I wouldn't change one thing about my life. Not one thing. No, no.
Yeah.
Because, yeah, my hockey career was rewarding,
Yeah.
but what I'm doing today is way more. Like, I would trade my gold medal and my Stanley Cup and all the accolades and fame and everything to change one person's life, because ultimately that's why we're all here. That's why we're all here. We weren't put on this earth to suffer in silence. We were put on this earth to be in relationship with each other and help each other get through the most difficult times.
Yeah.
And I guarantee you, it's probably not going to get any worse than where we're at right now, right? Because they want us all dead. They want us all dead, right? They're poisoning our food. They're spraying shit in the air. They want us dead. So the alternative is, I'm going to fight. I'm going to fight.
I love
I'm
that
going to
about
keep
you.
fighting.
I love that about
Right?
you. And I'm thinking about who's watching right now, who's probably in that place where you once were of a lot of pain. And,
Yeah.
and you're giving them hope that they can change too. And is that what you bring? Like, you believe that you can get past the deepest pain and the suffering, even of others who've hurt you. You can get through that, and you can get to a place of peace and purpose again.
Yeah. Yeah. Because the ultimate goal is peace, joy, happiness, and serenity. I never experienced any of those things at the beginning of my life. I lived in fear, anxiety, depression, all these things, and I used alcohol and drugs and food and sex and gambling to cover it all up, but eventually all that stuff stopped working, which then brought me to my knees. And, I could have given up, or I could have turned my life over to God. And I turned my life over to God, and God has given me the greatest life you can possibly imagine. Right. So, you can look at adversity in lots of different ways. I could have played the victim for my whole entire life. I had righteous anger, right? But where did that get me? It got me a fully loaded pistol in my mouth 18 years ago, wanting to pull the trigger and end my life. That's where the victimhood role, anger, resentment, all these things, that's where it got me, right?
What stopped you in that moment?
That little voice inside of my head said, "You never quit anything in your life. Why are you quitting now?" And that was the day that I chose to live, to truly live, right? And, uh, I would say, the first 10 years of sobriety was pretty ugly. I hit more rock bottoms in sobriety than I ever did drinking. Why? Because I was actually feeling my true feelings, sadness, anger, all these negative emotions that I suppressed for so long. They started to come to the surface, and it wasn't fun. It wasn't a fun process, but I knew it was part of the process to get to peace, joy, happiness, and serenity, right? Because that was the ultimate goal, right? So,
That makes a lot of sense. Like, in order to get better, you had to withdraw from all the addictions that were covering over the pain. And so you had to actually get worse, like feel the pain in
Yeah.
order to get through that. And so somebody watching right now has to make that decision, that tough decision to do that, to let go of anything that's blocking pain so you can really deal with it.
Yeah. Yeah, that's the
That's
process.
hard. Yes.
Unfortunately, that's the process. And you know,
It takes
what we're
courage.
what we're what we're seeing now is a lot of people who are struggling with what's going on, right?
Yes.
Because we're all feeling pain right now. We are feeling pain. You know, I one of the gifts that I got from all of the trauma that is, it's a curse, but it's also a gift. Is I'm an empath, and so I feel energy
Deeply. Yeah.
deeply, like
Yeah.
deeply, and I swallow all of everybody else's pain too, you know. And but like I said, God only gives us as much as we can handle, and
Yes.
I'm grateful that He picked me to be in this role, to because there isn't anything better that I want to be doing right now than fighting for freedom and justice and accountability and all these things. And these guys run away from that at every opportunity they can get. Like, how many people have you had from the left on your show?
Well, they don't want to talk.
Exactly, because they can't. They
Right.
can't.
Yeah.
They can't. And
It's
they hate accountability.
yeah.
They hate it.
Yeah. I don't know
They
if you
hate it.
got to see Elon questioning the BBC reporter. We
It
kind of
was
aired
awesome.
it yesterday. Yeah, wasn't that great? I mean,
Yeah, it was perfect.
they
Yeah.
can't have a discussion and talk about what
Mhm.
they really think
Yeah.
because they don't even know and they don't have any
Yeah.
facts on their side.
Yeah. Yeah, and when you're watching Trudeau get interviewed, don't listen to what's coming out of his mouth. Watch his nonverbal communication. Watch his little ticks and tells, because he's lying every time something comes out of his mouth. Every time. It's like I would love to play poker against him because I would win all of his money because I know all of his tells. I
Right.
know all of his tells, right? You know?
Yeah.
So,
I know.
so I
It
would say to
really
people, just hang on a little longer. These
don't
people
give
are
up.
imploding. These people are imploding. They're revealing their true selves. They're revealing their true agenda, and
Yeah.
eventually they fail, right? Because the
Absolutely.
intention is not God's intention, right?
And we're getting
It's an
smarter, eh?
evil. Yeah,
Yeah, yeah.
yeah.
Like when
But it
when
takes these kind of conversations,
it does. And Theo, when people won't support a certain group who's doing something, like if somebody is going against your principles and values, don't spend one dime at their
no,
establishment. Bud Light is facing a tremendous loss right now for what they're doing.
hilarious.
Like really hilarious. I mean, honestly, like it just shows the world is not on the side of this nonsense.
No,
And when people just say that's enough, I have dollars, I have expendable dollars, and I won't be. I
yeah,
haven't had a Tim Hortons coffee in well over a year now since what they did to the summer camp kids, and
yeah,
I won't.
yeah,
I won't. If
yeah,
I hear an apology, I might consider going back. But I found out other places have great coffee, and they didn't do
yeah,
that, to the kids.
yeah.
So,
I have
um,
great coffee in my house.
right. And always add
Yeah.
a bit of cinnamon to it, Theo. That's what I
Yes.
find. You're such
Exactly.
a deep person, Theo. Like, are people shocked because you're not the typical jock, I mean, you're at the top level of a sport and hit all the milestones and got all the accolades from all of that. And yet you're using your time. Like you must get some hate mail, eh? And you must get people against you, but you don't bow
Mhm.
to any of it.
No, no, no. Because, well, you can't get to the top level of your sport and be an unintelligent, uneducated, uninformed human being, right? You know, you have to have a certain amount of intelligence, right? And there's a certain reputation about athletes that we're all dumb jocks. Well, no, I have an IQ of 159, right? So, but a lot of it is because of all of my experiences in life, right? I'm a very hypervigilant guy, right? Which is a gift from experiencing trauma, is you become hypervigilant. So I can walk into a room and within a millisecond know who all the safe people are and know all the evil people are in a millisecond, right? And that's intelligence. That's awareness.
And a real blessing, because we
Yeah,
got
and I had
a
to have-
world full of people who have no idea who the bad guys are.
Yeah. And it served me very well on the ice, right? And in my sport, it's about winning, okay? And so the game within the game it's a physical thing, but more importantly, 95% of it is psychological, right? And so I used my intelligence and my psychology to intimidate people who were bigger, stronger, faster, more skilled than I was, because I was able to get inside of their heads. And when they're inside of their heads, they aren't thinking about playing hockey. They're thinking about getting me. That's it. And that's what I wanted. Right?
Oh, that's a
So
good
this is no
guy.
different. This is no different. I was a villain my whole entire life on the playing field. So when people come at me, I don't care. I was booed in every visiting rink that I ever played in.
What an honor.
And you know what? I took it as a compliment,
Right.
because that meant that I'm doing exactly what I'm supposed to be doing. If
Yeah.
people dislike me and, are booing me and yelling at me and screaming at me, I must be doing something right. Because if I
love
wasn't
it.
noticeable, they wouldn't even care.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So yeah, it's interesting times that we're living in. And I am grateful. I am grateful for all of the lessons and experiences I had in my whole entire life, because it prepared me for the last 3 years, let me tell you.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it's been hard. I'm not going to say that it's been easy. It's been probably the most difficult 3 years in my whole entire recovery, right? Because there are days I go, geez, I feel like crap, and I know exactly what would make me feel better. Go buy a bag of cocaine, get 24 beer, and numb myself out. But I know I can't do that, right?
No.
I can't do it, right?
And a lot
And
of
isn't
people
it interesting?
need your strength.
Isn't it interesting that they kept the dope shops and the liquor stores open during the lockdowns?
Right. Churches closed.
Right?
Dope shop open. Yeah.
Yeah. Unbelievable.
Yes.
Like, it's so easy to see the pattern, right? It's so easy to see it, right? Because I lived it, right? And if we really go far down the rabbit hole and talk about, pedophilia and adrenochrome and all these things, like, that makes sense to me, right? It really does.
We're dealing with
Because
the
when
Nephilim.
you're addicted, you'll go to any lengths to get your fix, right? And the worst addiction to have is the addiction to power. And all these Bill Gates and Justin Trudeau's and Klaus Schwab's of the world, they're addicted to power. And so that's all they think about 24 hours a day. Just like an addict thinks about going to get his next fix, or the alcoholic who needs to get his drink in him. That's all we think about, because it's an obsession of the mind, right?
That makes a
And
lot
to
of
these
sense.
guys,
Yep.
and to these guys, it's an obsession to power. They gotta have it.
It
'Cause
is
if
like
they don't
whenever.
have it,
Yep.
if they don't have it, who are they?
Then
Who are
they're
they?
not happy. That makes sense as to why, because I've never sat around thinking, oh, how do we get rid of other people so I can have more in this world, you know? But how do I have power over other people? How do I remove food here or there, make people suffer so I can bring them under my thumb, you know? So a lot of times we don't have that mentality. But you're right. Like it makes perfect sense when you think about some of these high ranking, very, very powerful, wealthy people that they gain their sense of, you know, that inner addiction, that fix by having power over us. And that's why we have to stand and not give in. And you've been prepared to help us to fight for what we
Right.
deserve.
So are you familiar with the 12 steps?
I am familiar with it because
Okay.
of helping some young people. Yeah.
Okay, so what's the first step? We admitted we were powerless
Over our addiction.
over addiction,
Yeah.
and that our lives had become unmanageable. Are our lives unmanageable right now? 100%.
Feels like it
And who's
sometimes.
running our lives? The power addicted, crazy, insane people who refuse to look at their own powerlessness. So they project it onto everybody else.
And they need to get a 12-step program and get some help and stop trying to hurt
Yeah.
the world.
Everybody needs to go through the 12 steps. Everybody.
Yeah.
Because there's so much good stuff in the 12 steps.
Yes.
And then what's the 12th step? Having had a spiritual awakening as the result of these steps, we tried to carry this message to other alcoholics, addicts, you name it, and to practice these principles in all our affairs.
Yes.
Simple.
Yep. And we get addicted to a lot of different things, sexual
Oh,
addictions, anything to try to, you know, salve the internal pain that we don't want to look at.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's a lot of different things.
It's avoidance. It's avoidance of our feelings.
Right. Even buying
Right?
things, Theo, like a lot of people,
Oh,
they just
yeah.
can't keep their credit card in check. Well, it's because
Retail therapy, I call it. Right? Retail therapy.
feel better when
Right?
I buy something.
Yeah.
Yeah. Can't
Yeah.
pay the bills. Doesn't feel better later when the check comes
No.
in, but
No. No.
yeah.
And then Trudeau's telling everybody to rack up their credit cards because he wants you to pay 21% interest. Like, dumb. Just dumb.
Yeah.
Just dumb.
As
And this
prime
guy's
ministers go,
the
he's
leader
really
of
let
our
us down.
country.
Yeah.
This is the leader of our country.
So many scandals, Theo. It's so hard,
Oh.
As a Canadian, we want to be proud of our nation. And Trudeau's come in, and we're an embarrassment on the stage, the world stage. We're an embarrassment. People talk very badly. Even India's got this video out about him being involved in the murder of a family member, and it's like, wow, like people hate you. They are just smacking down on you on everything they can find. You know?
Yeah. Yeah. Well, you remember how, even foreign people that were backpacking would put Canadian flags on their backpacks. I guarantee you can't put a Canadian flag on your backpack now.
Anymore. Yeah, it
No.
could get you in trouble. Right.
Mhm.
It's
And
been
that's a direct result of, the Liberals, the Greens, and the NDP, wanting communism.
Yeah.
It's the bottom line is we
Your buddy
are
Joe
Yeah.
Borgo, he really put himself forward, and man, I liked him. I was like, if he's running our country, we got it made in the shade. And sadly, Canadians seem to be rejecting the right kind of leaders right now. Like they're so foolish. They have lost their compass, on what's right. And I just appreciate the people you run with, such as Joe, because he's a man of integrity and principle.
Big time.
We've lost
Big time.
that,
Yeah. But he's a man of God, right?
Yeah.
You know, at the core of who Joseph Borgo is he's a man of God, and he lives his life every single day, you know, with that principle intact, right? And he doesn't deviate at all, ever, you know. And you know, I could have joined any group, right? I could have been with whoever I wanted to be with, but you know, when I met Joe and I talked to Joe, and then I actually drove to his community and saw what his family did to that community, I was like, wow, this guy's the real deal. And I want to hang around with this guy, you know? Just just for the mentorship alone was more than enough for me, you know, because he's a successful businessman, he's a successful human, you know, and you know, we have a really great team at Canadians for Truth. You know, we're all about discerning the truth, and we're not afraid to ask the tough questions or, you know, tell it like it is. And you know, Jamie Soleil is another quality human being who I've known for many years, and we reconnected at the beginning of COVID and struck up our friendship. And you know, she's like my little sister, you know. And you know, and we just have a really great team, and we have lots of fun together, and yeah, we just love what we're doing.
I know, I love it too. And you guys are doing all these events and things like that. And I just encourage everybody to go and see that. Right before I let you go, like in your own province, court release documents reveal NDP leader Rachel Notley misleading the public. Do you have anything to say about this woman who's already done so much damage to your province?
Yeah, yeah, it's really been interesting to watch their campaign because it has no substance. It's all attack. It's an all-out attack of the other side, 24/7. You know what I mean? And divisive politics. Um, you know, as you can see, it got Trudeau elected 3 times. Divisive politics, right? And you know, they're just rolling out the same agenda that Trudeau did, you know, in the last 3 times he ran for prime minister. So I hope and pray that we have a legitimate election in Alberta, but I can't see it happening. You know, um, if they can steal an election in the United States of America, then Alberta is chicken feed for these people, and the same people uh, that are at the top are also the same people that are running Rachel Notley's campaign. Because apparently $7 million just showed up out of thin air for her campaign. Wonder where that came from.
Right.
You know, so you know, if she gets elected, I will be leaving the next day for Florida. So
Florida's beautiful. It's God's country
I
down
know.
there, Theo.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, they have a half decent governor who's not putting up with any of the bullshit either. So,
Yeah.
you know, and Trump hangs around down there too. So, and Tucker lives there too. So I'll have a friend in Florida, right?
I love it. And I love Tucker. Yeah, good people. What is it about Florida? There's something really special there. I mean, Governor DeSantis, he has, banned teaching gender nonsense, in the lower grades so kids can actually have a chance at not being, propagandized. I mean, I hope he goes even farther with all of that. But he's just he's made such strong stands, and we always say, like, where's our Governor DeSantis that can get elected here in Canada?
But Kristi Noem has also done an amazing job in South Dakota as well, right?
Yes.
I think she said the last 3 years they've created more wealth in South Dakota than at any point in their existence, right? And you can see, the Californias the Illinois, the New Yorks of the world just simply imploding with crime. And, it's just really sad to see when you have leadership like that who really don't care about human beings, right? And that's the one thing I struggle with every day is, we've had people die and people who are severely injured from the vaccine, and not one or very few politicians have come out. So what that tells me is that they do not care about humanity. They only care about their own power. Because
Yeah.
when did human life stop mattering? Right? When did one human being's life stop mattering? Right? And
It
is that the
hasn't
kind of
seemed
world
to.
is that the kind of world we want to live in? No. No, everybody I know from playing a team sport that uh, you know, the guys that weren't necessarily the most talented or the most skilled person still had a role to play on the team, still contributed to the team, and was very successful. Yeah, they weren't getting their name in the paper, they weren't being interviewed every day, but they were the glue that held the team together because they brought other attributes to the table that we needed in order to be successful, in order to win. So every human being has a value, and every human being brings something to the table. And we live in a world where we've just discarded the human life is doesn't matter, right? But that's the attitude of these satanic, people, is they don't
Yes.
care.
With
Is
an
they don't
addiction
care.
to power. Yeah.
Yeah, right. And they'll do whatever they can to stay in power. But as you can see, Trudeau can't go anywhere in this country without being heckled. Where he was a darling. 2015, when he got elected, he was like the savior of the world. And look at him now, 8 years later. He's the most despised, hated human being in Canada. And he knows it. He knows it. He knows it.
Yeah, I can't go anywhere and get a good reception without people throwing
No,
stuff.
no,
You know,
no,
I don't know how
no.
he'll go anywhere in the world for the rest of his life. Actually, if Canadians are there somewhere, we've
Yeah,
got this place in
yeah.
Costa Rica, I know, and I love Costa Rica, but um,
Well, and
it's,
here's the thing. Here's the thing. He doesn't realize that he's being used.
yeah, the pain
He's just being used.
will be
He's
for him.
just being used. He's a pawn
Yep.
in the Rockefeller Rothschilds game that's being
And he'll be
played.
discarded, I think, Theo,
Oh
once
yeah,
there's no use for him.
absolutely. Yeah, he thinks that he's going to get some big UN job, and he's going to live the cushy life and have immunity all over the world. No, that's not happening.
Yeah.
Just read the history books. Read the history books as to what Hitler did to those guys that helped him get into power. They weren't around at the end.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They
And
eat
that's what
their
I
own. They
yeah, and
don't
that's what I say
care.
all the time. And I said this when I was interviewing Kyle Kemper, his brother. I said, your brother has a great opportunity right now. He can stand in front of the camera, tell us the truth, apologize, and then give us the opportunity to forgive him. Because we know,
Wow.
we all know what's going on. You can't hide it anymore, right?
Wouldn't that
And
be a
so
moment? I mean, I'd
it
just
would
like to
be,
dream that could
yeah,
really happen. That would be a
but nobody's,
moment
but
where we could operate.
who's telling him to do that? Nobody. He's
No?
got a bunch of yes people around him,
Yeah.
you know?
And he's
That's it.
probably got that power addiction and the money thing,
For
and maybe
sure.
a bit of fear because he's already been threatened with a little bit of trouble with all the nonsense he is, and the
Yeah.
scandals that he keeps going
Mm-hmm.
through. And
Yeah.
that terrifies him. But if he could just be a
Well,
real
that's
person,
one thing about criminals, right? Is they always get riskier and riskier as they go along, as they get away with more stuff, and that's what
right?
we're seeing. That's exactly what we're seeing. You know, the jails are full of people who thought they could beat the system. And Trudeau thinks he can beat the system. Well, he's not. He's not fooling anybody. The only
Right.
person he's fooling is himself. At the end of the day, he's fooling himself.
Yeah. And really,
Right?
it's kind of a sad trajectory of how this will turn out for him as a person.
Yeah.
Potentially the loss of his family, the loss of all respect, the loss of being able to go anywhere in the world without being sneered at. Like, if, I mean, you're right. When a
History,
person's that evil,
history will not be kind
right, to
to
him.
to the 338 people who sit in the House of Commons right now. History is not going to be kind to you guys
Right.
at all.
Maybe
It's
not any
not.
of them. Like when you
No.
say God was there at the truckers' convoy, look who stood with us. Like nobody. They let us
Yeah.
get assaulted,
Yeah.
you know?
Mhm.
And we were standing for what's right, and they know it. They
Yes,
know
of
we were
course.
standing
That's
for what's right.
That's
Some of
why
them.
they had to. That's why they had to invoke the Emergencies Act, right? That's why they had to arrest, because they had to instill fear. That's why they closed people's bank accounts, because they needed to say, if you mess with what we're doing, there are going to be consequences for you, right? That's why the whole entire Freedom Convoy has imploded, right? It's because everybody's afraid now, because they think,
Yes.
oh my God, my bank account's going to be closed. I'm going to be arrested, da 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 da, right? They had to do it.
Yeah. France has got
Otherwise,
millions of people protesting still against Macron. You know, you kind of have to get to the place where you say, come hell or high water, this far and no further, like we are going to
Yeah.
fight. And I don't know when
Mhm.
Canada gets there, but it does seem to just, nothing's getting better without the fight. That's for sure. But people
Yeah.
are
Well,
awakening slowly.
look what happened in the Netherlands. The farming political
Yes.
party is now in power there,
It's cool.
right?
It gives you
Yeah.
hope. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. So, don't be discouraged. I just encourage people to stand in your truth.
Yeah.
Stand in your truth. Yeah. And you're gonna get resistance. You're gonna get resistance, you know? But when you get the resistance, you know that what you're doing is probably the right thing, right? You know, takes two people to have an argument, takes two sides to have a war, right? And they dragged us into this war. I didn't want to
Yes.
be a part of a war,
Yeah.
right? I've had two very successful careers in my life. I was getting ready to retire, and this is the last place I want to be, right? This is the last place I want to be. This is the last thing that I want to be doing in my life. I want to be on a golf course, golfing every day, enjoying the fruits of my labor. But here we are. Here we are. I'm fighting for the opportunity to do that. That's what I'm doing. And I'm also fighting for my children, my grandchildren, the future, because the future doesn't look very good right now, right? 15-minute cities? No
15-minute
thanks.
prisons. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. I don't want any part of that.
So
Right.
what you're saying is you kind of thought you were going to be heading, into a little bit of fun, and you've had to take a step back and go, I got to fight for my country one last time here. I got to fight for what's right again.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We appreciate
Well,
it.
and I played for my country 10 times in my career. I had the Canadian flag on my chest. And why were we successful? Because we played with our hearts, right? And Trudeau took the heart out of Canada, and we got to get it back, because that's our greatest asset as Canadians is our hearts.
Yeah.
We are the most giving, the most charitable, the most loving, the most kind, most respectful, And Trudeau took the heart out of Canada, and we got to get the heart back. And that's standing in your truth.
Yeah.
Standing in your truth and inspiring other people to do the exact same thing, right?
Wow.
It's the famous Vidal Sassoon commercial. Two friends told two friends, so on and so on and so on and so on, right? And that's how it has to happen.
Well,
Right?
you
Because
are,
we got to get the heart back in Canada. And when we do
amen.
that, this is all over. This
Amen.
is all over.
Well, thank you for being a truly, you're like a general in this fight and in this war, and you're helping a lot of people to stand in their truth, and you're showing the way to courage. And you of all people could be taking the easy road right now, and you're not, and it's because of us and your family and Canadians and what we love about Canada and fighting to get it back. And
Well, did you think that I fought for my whole entire life to get to this point?
right,
To die?
no,
No.
you got to push
No.
forward. You can't let all of
Yeah.
that go to waste. You have to fight.
No. Yeah. Exactly.
Yeah.
Or I'll come back in some other shape or form or whatever. I don't know. But you know,
And kick some butt.
kick some butt. Always kick butt. But you know, thank you, Laura, for reaching out. I always enjoy talking to you. I love what you're doing as well. And you know, we all need to stick together. Independent media is, you know, what we need is we need people telling the truth. And, you know, if you don't like it, then you maybe should look at it, right? Maybe do some research and really find out what's going on in the world, because it isn't good.
It isn't good. Theo, you are one of my favorite all-time Canadians, and I am so, every time I speak with you, which I've spoken with you before, and I saw you on Tucker, and your honesty, it really is inspiring, and I think that is true, a true Canadian right there, and that is a true person that is deeply in touch with what is right and your spiritual self, and you're so vulnerable about it. I just love it. And you inspire me. And so every day when I'm doing this, I think about people like you with your fame and your platform. If you can do it, then I can do it. And I'm going to keep doing it, and we'll keep doing it together.
Yeah.
And I bless you
Yeah.
in your, in your events and all of that you're putting out as well. Like keep
Yeah,
going
thank
forward. I
you.
hope to catch one
Yeah.
really soon.
And
Yeah.
you know, I'll just end it with this. I don't want my kids to look up at me and say, Dad, why didn't you do anything? You know, I don't want to have to answer that question. So the people that are listening, or the people that are going to listen to this interview, think about that you may have to answer that question someday. And how's that going to make you feel? So either piss or get off the pot, because it's time. We need everybody.
Right.
We need everybody. And those of us who are awake and are still afraid to stand in our truth and speak our truth, we need you more than ever.
We have to get there.
We need you more than ever. And you know, the short-term sacrifice for the long-term gain is what you need to think about, right? Heaven on earth. We have the opportunity. We have that opportunity to get
You're
through
so
this,
amazing.
and then live the way God meant
Live
us to
well.
live.
I
Yeah,
want that. I
live
want
well.
that back.
Live-
I hope
Yeah.
for that. A peaceful
Yeah.
time again. We pray for that.
We're gonna win.
All
We're gonna
right.
win.
Thank you,
I don't know how to
Theo.
lose. So
I know you don't.
here we go.
You really don't. All right. God bless you, brother.
Cheers.
You've been
Thank
amazing.
you.
Thank you.
Cheers, Laura.
Thank you. Bye-bye. Oh, wasn't that just so lovely? Oh my gosh, that is an amazing man, right? Do y'all remember Theo Fleury playing and like the roar of the crowd? And then when he was, in someone else's town, the boo, because they knew when Theo Fleury showed up. And now he's showing up again, and he's on our side, and he's fighting. He's telling the truth, and he's doing it in a big way, creating a media, empire that they're working on, him and Joe Borgo over there, doing these events, putting himself out there when he could be playing golf. I love him. That is a courageous hero right there. That is him. I just love that. Okay, before we go, AG Merrick Garland embarrassingly stumbles when asked by Senator Josh Hawley if the DOJ has a problem with anti-Catholic bias. What is with all the assaults on religion these days? Take a look.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Attorney General Garland, let me just ask you, does your department have a problem with anti-Catholic bias?
Our department protects all religions and all ideologies. It does not have any bias against any religion of any kind.
Well, you could have surprised me, because given the resources that you are expending and the apparently intelligence assets that you are deploying against Catholics, it appears, and other people of faith, while simultaneously turning a blind eye while people are executed gang style in the streets of our cities, including in my home state, your answer frankly surprises me.
Well, your actions don't appear to be showing what you say. We support all religions and all genders. We just support everybody. We just love them. Okay. All right. It's beginning to look a lot like people aren't telling the truth, and there's a lot of evil that has ascended to high places. But we do not wrestle against flesh and blood, but against principalities, powers, rulers of dark places. And in that battle, we know we win because God is more powerful. RFK questions why Operation Warp Speed was run by the intelligence agencies. This is interesting. Take a look.
The COVID Operation Warp Speed was run not by HHS, but by the National Security Agency. Well, if you look at the organizational charts, the Pentagon and National Security Agency ran the COVID response, not HHS. Why is that?
Why is that indeed? Why are non-medical people sort of in charge? Why are governments and justice systems in charge of dispensing medical vaccines, medical knowledge? Why is everybody in charge that's not even a medical person and making big decisions for the world? Really bad stuff has happened. Okay, so on Twitter, this is shocking. 18,000 cows have been killed at a dairy farm in South Fort, Texas. That's their barn. And so we can't get any larger, eh? I probably should have pulled this up. It says officials have confirmed over 18,000 dairy cows have been killed from the South Fork Dairy Farm explosion that happened on Monday evening in Texas. Isn't it weird, you guys? Isn't it weird that all of these food plants are suddenly combusting, that chickens are dying, food is dying? Remember all those animals that there was, in the heat wave, supposedly, where there's been lots of heat waves, and then all those things died, and you've got food barns blowing up, fires. It's kind of like when COVID hit, and then 3 different hydroxychloroquine plants, big, not the plants, but the manufacturing facilities were blowing up, right? It was just, stuff is so bizarre world, and all these train derailments, all these 7 pilots being incapacitated in the last 2 months while flying. Weird. Life is weird, isn't it? JT, did we do everything? Did we cover? Because I got this huge list here. I think we did. Well, one more thing. Sadly, in Japan, a young girl has died from the mRNA COVID-19 vaccine, it appears. They were able to do an autopsy, and now pictures have come out showing that in her heart, lung, liver, and I believe, does that go any smaller or not really? Is that the brain? Is that the last one there? Oh, multiple ones. Yeah, okay, in her kidneys, in her diaphragm, in her stomach. So what this is a picture of, everybody, is spike proteins. Apparently they were in her entire body everywhere, and she has suddenly passed. And so the good thing is that autopsies are being done and beginning to. You will not see that happening a lot in Canada. When people die suddenly, there should be quite an extensive look. There should be definitely autopsies. The blood should be surveyed. We should know what happened, not just guess, oh, you know, it was an unfortunate thing, an arrhythmia, or, you know, an aneurysm. Well, what's going on in there? There should be a lot more autopsies than there are. And we can see that when the National Citizens Inquiry that is going on right now had a woman who has been embalming for many, many decades, well, a couple of decades, many years. And one of the things she said as an embalmer is that she started to see things in 2021 that she'd never seen before. And she has come forward speaking the truth. And so we do hope that the truth sets all of us free. If we hide it, if any of the people that are sent to the platforms that we're on to assess whether we're speaking the truth or not, I want to speak to you right now. You have decisions to make about whether you allow the truth to be told or not. You're sitting there in a quiet room and you're called one of those fact people, right? Guess what? You're playing a role in history that's very important right now. Your role is to decide whether you can live with yourself after you have helped to suppress truth that people needed to know. And you're an important part of that. And you get to make decisions that impact all of humanity. And I want to say to you, you were chosen for that job. And I pray that you make the right decision when you need to. And I think that should end it. All right, so we will be in Calgary this Saturday night. Let me show you who's going to be there. Take a look.
One thing that everyone should be taking away from this is to not put faith and trust in the pharmaceutical industry or their drug dealers that they call medical doctors.
How are we going to gain back the trust of the public?
They really want the story of Canadian doctors dropping dead suddenly and unexpectedly to go away. They don't want anyone asking questions. They don't want anyone investigating it. And these deaths continue to happen.
They stand beside you and they have a certificate that said 2 needles went into my shoulder, right? Meanwhile, they have not mounted an immune response whatsoever.
If you dare to speak up for the victims of the totalitarian regime, then you yourself will become a victim. That's a dangerous road.
Do not let your children be vaccinated with these vaccines. The only person who has liability here is your child.
It is gonna be fantastic. So I hope that you will be there. Also, do not forget that, well, you can get your tickets at my website, Laura-Lynn.tv. Also in May, the Great Canadian Awakening will be at, no, not that one, hun. Yeah, that one. The Great Canadian Awakening, May 5th and 6th in Ontario. It's near Toronto. It's at the Canadian Christian College. It's an epic venue. It's just absolutely fantastic. And so many people are going to be there. And over 2 days, we're going to inspire each other. We're going to have camaraderie. We're going to talk together, ask questions together, and really get through all of this together. Man, I wonder if Theo Fleury is going to be there. He'd be great on that list, wouldn't he? I'd love to see Theo. Let's see what we can do. See if we can get him there. My website is Laura-Lynn.tv. If you are able to support what we do, having the kind of guests and the dialogue that we have, nobody pays us to do this. We don't get any subsidies from the government or any big organizations or ministries at all. We get to tell the truth and do it at great peril and difficulty to ourselves. So if you're able to help us at any time by supporting us with a gift, if you go to the donation button that is on my website, Laura-Lynn.tv, you will be able to make a one-time gift. You could become a monthly partner, which is awesome. You can do an anonymous gift, which is terrific. You could also email us at lauralynlive@protonmail.com, and you can send an e-transfer if you'd like to, or you can just send an email and communicate with us on what you like or don't like about the programming, and we'd love to hear from you. We're considering what it would take to get onto Daystar Canada, and it is doable. We would need to, well, we want to hear from the Lord, make sure that's what he wants us to do, and then we'd love to reach a larger audience with the message that we're bringing, because we think it's important, and not enough people are willing to tell the truth right now. So we'd like to do that. So let us close with a word from the Bible. Psalms 45, my heart is stirred by a noble theme. As I recite verses for the King, my tongue is the pen of a skillful writer. Well, I can write okay. I want to, in verse 15, it says, let in with joy and gladness they enter the palace of the King. Your sons will take the palace of your fathers, and you will make them princes throughout the land. I will perpetuate your memory through all generations. Therefore the nations will praise you forever and ever. I have a promise to myself that I have made an awful long time ago, and it was basically when I found out I was having kids, and that was that I would perpetuate the great memory of the Lord God from generation to generation, that I would be one who would stand firm and speak the truth of the living God, the only way by which we will be able to get through anything at all. And in the night last night, I was listening through the scriptures, and I think I was in 2 Peter. And when it talks about be one that reproves, that let the prophetic words of scripture guide our lives. Let's be the ones that speak. And do you know that there's scriptures, like we talk about not judging each other, but there are scriptures where it says, let the righteous judge what is true and good. And we are commanded to live holy lives, to pass that on from generation to generation. I'm very sad that today we covered some topics that do not honor the ways of God. Our nation has lost its pathway to God. We are afraid to pray publicly. We're afraid to bring up God in our lunchrooms. We are afraid to acknowledge that we might be a Christian or have faith in our lives, and we do not want to go against the mainstream ideology that has put itself forward. But it is important to talk and to speak in love, and to be a person that shows strength at this hour, because I think one of the reasons we have become silent is, we're not going to judge. We're not going to hold a high standard for our children and for those that are in our community. We're just going to, be kind, be nice. It's all been much too much kindness without courage. Because if you're truly kind, you will rescue your friend from hell. If you're truly kind, you will tell them what it takes to get to heaven. Jesus asked his disciples one question. He said, who do you say that I am? And that question for our lives determines whether we end up in heaven or hell. Who do you say that I am? If we say that Jesus is the Son of God, the only Son of God, and the only way to heaven, and if we receive him as our Savior, we have answered well, and we will walk into a life of eternity. If we do not know that, if we do not pass that to our generations and give them at least the opportunity to see and to know our God, then we risk putting them in a bad position of finding themselves on the wrong side when they face their moment in eternity. Do well, Speak well, speak the truth. We'll see you again soon. You know, it's not easy to deliver the truth of what our sick world is doing, but for some of us, we feel that we have no choice. Because if we are silent about these abominable things, then we are letting evil go unchecked, and we cannot do that. For those of you wonderful people who are writing me and are sharing your encouragement, I am deeply grateful. Thank you for all the letters that you've been sending. Thank you for the donations and the support. I found out that in order to speak the truth, you have to become very, very strong. If you would go to my website at www.laura-lynn.tv, you'll find all of the ways that you can contact me. Remember, my friends, all is well. All is well. Thanks for joining me.